There are many bodybuilders these days talking about how they regret taking steroids. Cali Muscle, who's a YouTuber and one of these OG old school bodybuilders, just done a recent video explaining his experience taking steroids.
Why steroids are a waste of time. Come with me on this ride as I explain my experience with using steroids. Started off as a 12-year-old kid working out like any other kid that played sports in the neighborhood. Push-ups, pull-ups, dips, the cement weight set. They let me get on the team. I had to ride the bench the whole season. And as I'm riding the bench, I'm just festering with anger. They told me you're only 90 pounds, you need to gain at least 20 more pounds. I read magazines on how to gain weight. I read an article with Arnold Schwarzenegger said eat 6,000 calories a day. So that's what I did. I force-fed myself. I hated food, just hated the whole process, but I did it because I had a goal I wanted to achieve.
As you can see, sometimes just a little bit of peer pressure to get bigger is all it takes, and it can lead them down a bad path, poor decision making, and put them in an early grave.
To Atrophy Prison, a guy asked me if I wanted some D-ball, and I didn't know what D-ball was. And I was benching and lifting more than him. So I'm like, what I need D-ball for if I'm doing better than you? 2007, I started getting serious about the gym. I was still in the street life, but I was going to work out like 5 days a week. So a guy was like, man, if you get on something, you go be like the biggest thing in California for sure. And I didn't even know what bodybuilding shows were at this point. And I was 32. So he put the little bug in my ear or whatever. Diego Chairs, rest in peace, he was my mentor, Diego's Power Alley Gym. He said, man, if you get on something, boy, you be the top bodybuilder in the world. I'm like, huh. He sparked my interest again. Went back to 24-hour fitness, saw this with my same buddy of mine. He was like, man, you thought about it? You're telling you do some shows, you'll be it. I'm like, let's do it. You go, you got the stuff, you go give it to me. You got it. I don't know about giving shots. You go have to do it. My first shot, man, was the next week. He gave me some Sustanon 250. I'm like, oh, this stuff's working. At that point, I feel I got addicted to the feeling of being stronger than everybody. My muscles just got full. And so I remember Diego saw me say, boy, you need to do a show. Started looking at bodybuilding shows to do. So my first one was Orange County Classic in 2009. Went there. Didn't know what I was doing. At that point, I was on about 1,000 grams of tests, maybe like 600 grams of tren. I didn't know what I was doing.
Cali Muscle just wanted to gain a little bit of weight to play football, but it eventually turned into him becoming a bodybuilder and then obviously a YouTuber and influencer. And at the end of the day, the audience wants to see spectacle. They want to see the biggest, most freakish bodybuilders. It's just that much more interesting to watch. And I know he smashed it with his YouTube channel, his businesses, and a supplement company, but we have to remember he has shaved years off his life in exchange.
Every day I would just study what chemicals. I bought all the books and I was experimenting with myself, which is foolish. I was getting big, right? 255, 260. You guys will see the documentary I did, Monster Cali Muscle Story. I was 260 in that video, just juice to the gills. 1,000 mgs test, 800 mgs trend, all that stuff that's tearing up those insides, man.
He said he was taking 1,000 milligrams of test and 800 milligrams of tren. These are actually crazy high doses. Tren is the super steroid that's getting bodybuilders killed these days. The reason why bodybuilders of the 70s and 80s are still here today is because they weren't taking this steroid, tren.
I always had a fear because even when I did bodybuilding shows, my right foot, right ankle wouldn't dry out when I would wear socks. You can see the indentation. And so that was always a sign for me that something is wrong.
Cali Muscle said his right ankle would swell up and hold a lot of water, and it wouldn't even dry out when he was prepping for the bodybuilding competition. This symptom is an early sign of heart failure.
It wasn't for me. Bodybuilding wasn't for me because I would have to kill myself, literally. I knew I had to take a lot of GH, IGF, insulin to really get my legs how they supposed to be. And I decided I would focus on social media. I'm gonna taper all the roids down. Just do I was doing 500 mgs of tests a week. I would do tren here and there. Take it for 3 months, get off, take it for 3 months, get off.
He said even when he tapered down the steroid use, he was still doing test and tren. So his tapered down cycle is actually still a super heavy cycle.
And I moved to Vegas and my foot and ankle, I couldn't fit my shoes. So I was blaming it on the heat. I tapered down roids. I would take 200, one shot a week, 250 mgs of test, and some Arimidex. But I was worried. And that calf, it just wouldn't get vascular and dry out. Got a couple of physicals. They would mention my cholesterol and my blood pressure being up, and I always had an excuse. 17, I decided to have some kids. I had 0 sperm. I was only on 1 cc a week and some Arimidex at that time. And all in between it is, I would get on the PCT. I would do Clomid, HCG, HMG to bring the sperm back. Went to the fertility doctor, did the test, 0 sperm. I was off roids for 2 years, didn't touch nothing, just HCG and Clomid to bring my natural test back and my sperm.
His sperm went down to 0 and he had to stay off the steroids for 2 years to get his sperm back. And even when it did come back, it was still on quite a low level for where it should be. I actually knew of a lad like this. He was only about 25 and he couldn't get his missus pregnant. His sperm count was non-existent at age 25, but that was because of all the steroids he'd taken.
So I got my sperm up and I couldn't wait to get back on some juice. And I was back huge in like, had to be like 60 days. 198, and I was back up to like 220 in about 2 months.
Cali Muscle eventually jumped back on gear, which is what led to his heart attack. The damage was already done, but jumping back on gear and running more of these heavy cycles just tipped him over the edge. Most bodybuilders don't get checked properly. They think because they get the bloods done that this is enough, when it's not. Long-term steroid abuse is associated with an increased risk of coronary arteriosclerosis, which is measured by increased coronary calcium within the arteries, and this is only seen when you get a calcium CT scan.
Weight gain series where I was like 235 maybe. I look back on videos now, I'm like, I was puffy as heck. I was huge. I did all that, right? I had the heart attack. When I had the heart attack, I was 220, still big. I look at that video when I was in the hospital bed, big still. And I'm trimmed back down to the size I am when I was in college, 190. I went through this rabbit hole of using roids, peds, juice, and I'm back to what I was before I started. Steroids is a waste of time, bro. My calves and ankle and feet now, not without the water, and that's because when it was clogged up. When the arteries clogged up, it slows your ejection fraction rate, so the blood's not flowing.
When you take steroids over the long term, your arteries can get clogged up with this calcium, which in turn lowers what's called your ejection fraction rate. As Cali Muscle said here, the ejection fraction rate is the percentage of the total amount of blood pumped out with each heartbeat. A normal ejection fraction rate is around 50% or higher. An ejection fraction below 40% means your heart isn't pumping enough blood around the body and it might be failing. There has been research done showing those who take anabolic steroids have left ventricle ejection fractions below the accepted limit of normal. People who defend taking steroids and say that there's nothing wrong with it as long as you do it within reason are just ignorant. There is research showing that people who take anabolic steroids have a higher risk of certain health problems. Over the next 20 to 30 years, there will be a lot more research done on steroids. You got to remember, these heavy steroids that are just coming out now, or over the last 2 decades or so, that's still fairly new when we're talking about the timeline of science and how research works. Not to mention the pool of people who are taking steroids and being open about it and offering themselves up for this type of research. It's a very small selection size.
Lean and mean and shredded is the best look, bro. You know what I mean? If you come across an MMA fighter or boxer and they see you all huffed up, puffy, they already sizing you up. Know you slow and go gas out. Stay natural, bro. Serious. It's no money in bodybuilding. It's cool to look at on social media.
All that extra muscle that you get from taking anabolic steroids doesn't make you happier. Being athletic, aesthetic, fit, and healthy is what makes you happy. And knowing that you're going to be there for your kids when you get older. You may feel happy now benching 200 kilograms, but when your heart gives out, you'll regret it. So a big shout out to Cali Muscle. Cali got famous off being an absolute jacked roidhead and looking like a freak. You got to understand how much mental strength it takes to downsize and understand that the majority of your audience doesn't really want to see that. So big respect to him. It can be a big hit to your pride, but I think bodybuilders like Cali doing videos like these is only going to help the fitness industry, and videos like these are really helpful because they potentially stop young, impressionable kids from hopping on the gear for the wrong reasons. Like this video, boys, and leave your comments down below what you think of this. See you tomorrow. Right guys, Shaun Jones here. Do you want to build muscle naturally, but you struggle to gain weight in the right areas? Maybe you previously tried bulking, but all that happened was you gained a belly, love handles, and man boobs. Unfortunately, you still looked skinny in a t-shirt with loose sleeves. Well, that could be due to a few factors. Number one, you're training incorrectly with poor technique, not enough intensity, or too much volume. Number two, your nutrition is poor. You're eating the wrong foods at the wrong intervals. Or number three, your genetics are holding you back. You could be what's known as a hard gainer, which means your body is fighting against you to build muscle. If any of this describes you and you're fed up of feeling weak and skinny, I have the solution. I've created an online course which is called the Natural Physique Academy, which is an 8-week step-by-step system teaching you everything that you need to know about training, nutrition, supplementation, and recovery so you can build your next 10 kilograms of muscle naturally. The program comes with 12 different workout routines so you can choose which best fits your lifestyle and your goals. Nutrition files, meal examples, calorie calculators, and food guidelines, a library of over 100 exercise demonstrations, and access to my private Facebook group so you can ask me anything whenever you need help, and much more. We currently have a sale on the program, so join now before the price increases. The link's down below. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the program.